ladies and gentlemen, it's time for our first official Duet Night Abyss guide. Yes, I have decided to wait quite a while to begin and actually start filming my beginner's guide because I wanted to make sure that I actually completed all of the possible content in the game that's really relevant for this type of guide. And this guide is going to be focused on new player progression and how to advance through the game as fast as possible. Because it's safe to say that across my 52-hour playtime, which I think you can see over here by going into statistics, my 52 hours of playtime.
There's a midsummer ball in the woods full of violet tricolor.
Why is she talking so much? Anyways, in my 52 hours of playtime, I've basically completed most, if not all, of the content in the game. Think about things like the Endgame mode, Immersive Theater. I've actually gone ahead and completed all the way up until Act 12, which is essentially where you get all the rewards. You get some repeating rewards afterwards, but you're basically done with the end game after Act 12. And I have all the tips and tricks, all of the experience under my belt to comfortably give you all insight for the best ways to actually get to this point. So without further ado, let's just go ahead, get ourselves started, and kind of go sequentially in order of what I believe is going to be the most important to your overall progression as a new player. So the first area that we're going to start off with when it comes to this guide is going to be your trial rank, because this is going to be the meter over here that essentially dictates everything that you're able to do in the game. As you increase your trial rank, you get access to things like better repeatable missions. You can raise your characters to a higher level, and you're essentially able to, with that higher level, actually complete the endgame modes. So you can see that I was at trial rank 55. And what that meant was that I was able to level my characters, right? Like my Psyche over here to level 70. And the fastest way that you're going to be able to ensure that you're actually able to deal with some of the more harder content is to actually raise your character level. Some more examples of other things that I mentioned before are being able to unlock higher leveled commissions. You start off with like the level 10 at the start of the game, and now I'm over here and I'm unlocking up to level 60, and then I'll get my next unlock when I get to level 60. And the thing is, with this trial rank, it's not just impacting the level of your characters or your weapons or your commissions, it also impacts what you're able to even grind for in the store as well. Everyone here talks about, you know, how the game is like infinitely grindable, all of that stuff through the secret letters, but you'll notice that you actually unlock some of the more unique weapons in the game as you actually build up that trial rank. You can see that over here, even at 55, I still have stuff locked off. So raising this thing in particular is going to be one of the most important things to do for your overall progression. And you're probably seeing why it's so important. And this is the thing. There are a lot of different ways to actually raise the trial rank. You see things like character progression over here, just from leveling up your units, weapon progression, Geniemon progression, which is kind of like your companion, your pets, and then of course, your demon wedges. And the best way for us to talk about increasing your trial rank is of course going to be talking about how you just increase the progression across all these different categories. So as you can probably imagine, this is the order that we're going to be going down. Now, when it comes to character progression, let's talk a little bit about the overall process. So when you start off your Duet Night Abyss career, you're gonna gain access to a lot of free characters, right? You get them at you get them at a 0 dupe level. You'll get units like Truffle and Filbert. You'll get Rebecca. You'll get Daphne, Outsider, Margie, and of course your main character, as well as I believe Barry over here. For all the other characters in the game, you're going to acquire them in a different manner. Namely, this mechanic called secret letters that I just looked at before. So when you go into the shop menu and then you go to the covert commissions tab, you'll notice that you'll have a bunch of different characters available when you start out, and some of these characters are going to be locked until higher trial rank. To basically guarantee either a dupe of a character or just the raw copy of them yourself, you're usually going to need around 20 to, I would say, around 25 secret letters. It's usually safe to go for around 21 right off of the bat. And once you purchase those secret letters, to actually claim the character, you're going to go into the combat menu, then go into commissions, and then go into covert commissions. And you'll see a bunch of different mission types that are available where you'll select the mission, then you'll select the secret letter of the character that you're trying to get dupes of. I have 24 Psyche secret letters, so we'll just demonstrate with this one right off the bat. Once you select the mission and then you go inside, your goal is to complete it as fast as possible so that you have a chance of cracking open the secret letter and then getting a wide variety of rewards. This is an example of a team that clears this type of mission really fast. I'm using Truffle and Filbert over here, right? And these guys will just be able to really navigate the map really fast because the pig is incredibly quick. And my goal in this capture mission, oh dear, is to essentially just knock this guy out, press X to capture him, and then go on my merry way back to the objective. Or the evacuation point over here. And by using a character that runs this fast, this is probably one of the fastest, if not the fastest unit in the game, then I can make this part of the grind feel a lot quicker. This is important because you're going to need about 20 or so runs to, well, unlock the unit that you're looking for or unlock the dupe. And as you can see over here, I got 2 copies of the 30 thoughts that I would need to either unlock the character or get a dupe. So we got that going. That's looking good. The unfortunate part about these secret letters is that A, they have a pity of about 10 to actually unlock the gold reward. You need 30 thoughts to unlock a character. And so typically, when you're grinding about 20 secret letters, you'll hit this 10 drop about 2 times within 20 letters, and then you're hoping to hit this 2 drop 5 times across your 20 runs. You only need about 7 out of your 20 runs to actually give thoughts using that sort of breakdown to be able to unlock the unit. And so whenever this pops up as a reward, you basically want to guarantee that you select this one. And obviously, whenever this pops up, you want to select this one as well. You will, however, get unlucky a bunch of times and get this essence gelatin instead of the thoughts that you want, or you'll just get like these random drops over here, which are either more secret letter clues or weapon manuals or, well, combat melodies. And this is just experience for your characters. This is just experience for your weapon. And this just lets you kind of like recycle the clues that you got. But you spent 10 for 1 letter, you get 1 clue back. So this isn't really like that great of a return. And so the goal is grind these about 20 times. I suggest doing capture missions because of how fast you just saw me do that over here. Grind that about 20 times, get your 30 thoughts, and then of course, you'll unlock the unit. And unlocking units in this game is really important for your trial rank because you get a lot from just unlocking the unit, and then you also get a lot just from leveling your characters. And let me just see over here. Maybe I can actually show you firsthand just how much you get. I've got my Rebecca, who's ready for Ascension 2, level 70. And you can see, that's going to give me 800 trial EXP just from leveling her up on her level cap. I do that, I get a huge boost. And 800 trial rank EXP, ladies and gentlemen, is actually a lot. And when you unlock a character, well, that gives you the capability, right, to just repeatedly go ahead and keep doing that. I decided to wait to ascend my characters just so I could show you just how much you're actually getting. And believe me when I say this, you get trial rank EXP when you unlock their ascension from 10 to 20, and then 20 to 30, and then 30 to 40, 40 to 50, all of that. Horizontal investment in this game is really, really, really important. And that's what leads me into my next point, which is going to be leveling characters versus getting dupes. If you're early on in the game, your trial rank is the #1 determinator of your strength because you can grind faster, you can deal more damage, you have more demon wedge tolerance over here so that you can actually upgrade your characters. It's really important to get that trial rank. And so a lot of people might be under the assumption, oh, I'll just grind I6 for a unit and ignore all the other ones in the present. Grinding I6 for a unit only gives you 250 trial rank per dupe. And you just saw I got 800 just from leveling up a character from 60 to 70 on their level cap. This is one of the most inefficient ways to grind trial rank in the game. And I really do not suggest you use introns as a way to grind trial EXP until you already have every unit that you can possibly get, which is what I have. I have every unit you can get from the Secret Letter Clue store. The only ones I still have available that need to be worked on are the units that either aren't available yet, like Fina, or the units that you get from the weekly commissions challenges, which is where we're going to be going next for our Secret Letter Clues. You have another method of unlocking characters, and that's through Nocturnal Echoes. You have about 5 runs you can do a week, and every time you unlock a different difficulty, or as your trial rank increases, you increase the number of different stages that you have access to as well. So I'll just go over here, and I'll just show you an example of what this actually looks like. Awesome. Okay. So now that I'm here at one of the bosses, you can see that I've unlocked a bunch of different challenges. The first time you complete a stage over here, you might notice, oh, there's no rewards. I'm going to use my weekly limit. This sucks. It doesn't actually count until you repeat a stage. So the first time you unlock one of these stages, you essentially get all of these rewards for free without digging into the 1 out of 5 claim over here. But once you actually complete one, well, that kind of changes everything. Because I've already completed this one, if I decide, oh, I want to level up Rhythm, or I want to unlock Rhythm on my account, then I would just grind this stage over and over. And assuming that I did get at least somewhat lucky, I get a 4 and a 5 drop a couple of times, I should have enough secret letter clues after exhausting my repeats for the week to actually unlock the unit. This is much slower paced for getting dupes or copies than it is for other characters that are just available in the secret letter shop. Because I could just go ahead, right? And if I wanted to get dupes and copies of, let's just say, Berenica, I would just buy a bunch of these. I can't do that for the things that are in this weekly unlock. And the thing is, there are also weapons in here as well. But we'll make sure to cover weapon blueprints and all of that once we move out of the character section. But that's another kind of like limitation that you have in here. You can only kind of grind for one of these things at a time. And unfortunately, that does make it difficult to get a lot of copies of these characters. But if your goal is to advance trial rank as fast as possible, like I just said, my #1 recommendation is unlock these characters first as often as you're able using your weekly resets and kind of go from there. Because that's what I did. That's why I have Yale Oliver on my account, who's gone from the Nocturnal Echoes, and I also have Hellfire on my account, who's also gone from Nocturnal Echoes. And I plan on going for Rhythm next, and then of course Fantasio, and all of those other units that are going to be available like Tabitha too, once I head into next week. So that's one of the other bits of progression that's going to be locked off over there. So we talked a lot about secret letter clues. We talked a lot about character acquisition. We talked about horizontal versus vertical progression, at least on the dupe side. Now it's time for us to talk about the actual vertical progression that you can do on your characters that isn't tied to secret letters or clues or any of that. And that is, of course, going to be actually building these units. So first things first, you always want to make sure that you're addressing the skills of your characters. The max cap that you have on your skills is going to be tied to, well, the level that the character is on the ascension cap. You can see that I have like level 8 abilities unlocked right now, and then I can also, unlock some of these passive side bonuses too. You don't have to worry about too much of the progression over here until you're like trial rank 55, I would say. It's not really that complex. Early on though, the goal is to just, max out these levels, and you're gonna have to balance a ton of resources to make it happen. It might be better to show a bit of a lower level character over here. Here we go. So examples of how you would level up the character are pretty easy when you're early on in the level up track. The main limitation that you're going to have is these fuel reagents, right? These kind of like tertiary skill materials. But you're going to notice these are dropped by any enemy. This isn't really a limitation at all if you're just grinding the game regularly. You should have basically an infinite number of like these kind of materials over here to level up all of your units. However, one of your other limitations is going to be your Luna Mementos. And these coins are absolute hell until you hit trial rank 55. And I'll explain to you why. These coins are used to upgrade your character abilities up until level 6, but these coins are also used to craft weapons. And we'll talk about how the limitation on these coins really becomes a bit of a hassle when we get in the weapons section. But for now, just keep in mind that this is a resource that's used for a lot of other things in the game, and them being used for skills too is really going to put a hamper on your progress as you're going out if you don't do the right amount of preparation. So just keep that in mind. Your side trees, however, require a different resource to level up. And that is simply the weekly boss mat that you get from your Nocturnal Echoes. And the great news is that even at higher levels, these don't require that many of the actual mats to, well, level up. And these side things don't even require the mats until they're level 6. The great news is that like I said before, your first clear across Nocturnal Echoes is essentially free, and you get like 3 of these mats. I can just show you right here. For each of these free runs, you're getting like 3 mats each. And that is more than enough to keep up with the pace of leveling the units. I don't think that these weekly mats are a concern at all. Even with almost all the characters built on my account, this hasn't been something that's really hampering progression. However, it might hamper your progression a bit more once you get to higher trial rank levels. But that's just something to keep in mind. The next thing that we're going to talk about over here is how your leveling is going to shift once you get to level 55. And that's where stuff's going to get a lot more simple. You're going to notice I need Luna Mementos, and then also this new material over here. that only becomes available in this level 70 stage that pops up after you hit trial rank 55. So don't worry too much about this material until you're about 40, 50 hours into the game. We'll probably have a bit more of like an intermediate Duet Night Abyss guide coming out for that type of audience. But since this is for beginners, just know Luno coins don't really become much of a concern because you're going to be running this stage like crazy to actually build your units. But you don't really need to run it that often to build your units prior to trial rank 55. So it's kind of like an issue that solves itself later on, but it is going to be a bit of a hamper early on in your development. So that's skills. Now let's move on to the next subject area over here. And this one, ladies and gentlemen, is going to be your demon wedges. And demon wedges are kind of damn important. So for demon wedges over here, you can see that I have a lot of different ones. And essentially, the way that you progress and grind your demon wedges is pretty much in line with your trial rank. Essentially, if you want to complete the end game, you want an entire set of customized demon wedges that are specifically working with the element of your character. Psyche, for example, is an Anemo character, and so all of the demon wedges that I have on right now give heavy buffs, but they're only 2 Anemo characters. Only Anemo characters can actually equip these. And so your demon wedge grinding for at least progressing to the end game should be really, really simple. Early on, and you'll notice in the combat menu, you can go to commissions and then Noctoyager manual. And this is where you start unlocking all of the various wedges piece by piece. And early on, you'll notice that the wedges available are a lot more general. You can just use these until you're about to start hitting the end game. Let me just show you better examples of them. You can just use wedges like these that just give a flat 60% attack to characters, and it's usable by everybody and unlocked really early on in your progression. You can just use these until you're trying to head into the end game. And honestly, for the first couple of endgame modes, it's not even required that you need anything above this, because the gear requirement, the DPS check, all of that stuff isn't really kicking into effect until you start getting into the immortal repertoire, which is like the end game. You can probably guess what I'm talking about over there. That's like where you actually need like crazy builds to work. Early on though, you'll just be perfectly fine with like these blue wedges. You don't really need to like grind these that often. However, what you will start doing as you get later on into your clear and your playtime and you're trying to grind that trial rank EXP, you'll notice that it's going to be really, really, really helpful to, well, start collecting a lot of them. Because you'll see over here, collect the whole set to earn 600 trial EXP. Collect the whole set to earn 1200 trial EXP. So on and so forth. You can kind of see how much this is going to aid in your trial rank progression. Because guess what, guys? To unlock the higher level demon wedges, you gotta be a higher trial rank. So you can kind of see. You might just want to grind these so you can get all the demon wedges to unlock more and more trial rank to unlock better demon wedges. And that cycle just keeps going and going and going and going until you get to the point where you're unlocking gold demon wedges. And for these gold demon wedges, they work a little bit differently. To actually craft a gold demon wedge, you're going to need 5 copies of the purple one that becomes available. And so, if I were to want to craft a gold version, right, of this demon wedge, let's just say Covenator's Blaze, then I would need to go ahead, go for the elemental stage that actually drops it, grind it a bunch of times, repeat it over and over and over until I got 5 copies of this. But then I also got to make sure I have the blueprint for that. And remember what I said before about like progression in the shop and the secret letters? Well, this is where you get the blueprints for the demon wedges. You got to go into the store, and on a pity of 10, typically within 10 runs, you get a copy of the blueprint. And then you'll need 5 copies of the thing that I just talked about to actually be able to, well, craft it. And so that's how the cycle works. And this is where your secret letter clues are going to start running a lot lower and lower. And this is why I don't really recommend people grind a bunch of introns. Because I'm at the point where I want to start grinding these out to get my character's endgame build ready. But if I'm grinding introns, well, I'm not going to have the secret letter clues required to actually grind these as well on top of it. And when you know that progression, you actually need 6 copies of one of these gold things to actually fully max out a wedge. I don't think a lot of people are going to be doing that, but that's kind of like where the grinding keeps going in this game. I would suggest just going for 1 copy once these are available and then call it kind of quits from there. And don't really get too much into that. So yeah, that's going to be characters. That's going to be Demon Wedges. Now let's just talk a little bit more about the elephant in the room when it comes to the progression over here. And that's going to be how you're balancing your character acquisition and your character levels with the fact that you also have weapons. So let's move on to those. We just talked a lot about character progression. We just talked a lot about Demon Wedges, all of those different components. We talked about how you gain trial rank and experience for simply leveling up your characters and unlocking their level caps. It's the same exact logic over here for weapons. Yes, to advance your trial rank as fast as possible, you just want to level up and grind for every single weapon on your account. And it can be a bit of a struggle if you're not really sure the best ways to go about it. So when it comes to weapons, the way that you're going to upgrade them is kind of simple. You just need to raise up the weapon, and then you need to grind this one stage called mediation over here to get all the mats. You can also forge the mats too with the drops that you get. And the thing is, as you're on the road to progressing through your account in all these different ways, you're going to be repeating this stage a fuck ton. And this is where having the trial rank higher is almost like a catch-22. You want to repeat the stages, lower level stages, to level up your weapons in the first place, but then it's actually faster to level up your weapons the higher trial rank you are, because you could just do the stages that'll give you more rewards. So unfortunately, you kind of are stuck in like a loop of inefficiency if your goal is to raise your trial rank as fast as possible. It's the same thing for characters, because one thing I didn't talk about is the ascension mats that you need for characters. You get those from a commission as well. And you're noticing over here, for the level 60 commission, I'm going to get 2 of these. For the level 51, I get 1. However, I still needed to grind that level 61 when I was in the process of raising all my characters anyways. So yeah, this is again why trial rank is so important. It just lessens the grind the further you go, but you grind more to level it up faster. Basically, the longer you play the game, the easier it gets to play the game, which is kind of like the reward that you get as you advance further and further. So back on weapons, you're going to be going ahead, using all those mats. You can see that ascending my weapons actually gives me less trial EXP than my characters, but it's still something that I want to do anyways. And naturally, you can see I'm leaving a lot of EXP on the table. That's going to make my road to level 60 from here a lot faster. But going back to the weapons, that's one of the ways that you're going to level them up. That's also going to increase your Demon Wedge tolerance too. This is my take on Demon Wedges for weapons. They're kind of useless. Yes, there really aren't a lot of characters in the game that actually rely on weapon damage to deal any of their actual damage. And it can oftentimes be better to just have a weapon that simply has good stats or a good effect and use that on your character instead of trying to actually make the weapon deal damage. Here are some examples of weapons that have just great overall stat buffs to the character. Wade Wraith is one of them. It just gives you more skill damage on your unit. Awesome. That's great. It doesn't deal any damage at all as a weapon, but this passive buff to my character oftentimes makes it the best pick for a lot of units. Similarly, you have ranged weapons that kind of do the exact same thing. These are going to go ahead, right, and just give passive skill damage bonuses or like skill duration bonuses over here, so on and so forth. And these are kind of like the top picks in the game because like I said before, there aren't really characters that deal weapon damage in the first place. However, once there are, that's when this whole preferred weapon type that you're seeing over here actually matters. Psyche, for example, prefers polearms and assault rifle. She'll increase the damage of every polearm or assault rifle that you equip on her. And if you equip a weapon that she isn't proficient with, it'll deal less damage. But if you're not using weapons to deal damage anyways, this isn't really as relevant. And so, yeah, I wouldn't worry too much about this one, but maybe for some future character releases, this is a mechanic that we'll dive into a little bit further later on. So yeah, that's going to be weapons in general in terms of like their overall progression. Now let's talk a little bit about their acquisition, kind of going in reverse order from the characters. You acquire weapons in the same exact way that you do characters, except you only need around 10 secret letters to get the blueprint for the weapon. When you grind for a weapon, you'll get one part of it over here, the other part of it in a much more available reward, and then the blueprint, which is the gold drop. You typically get the gold drop within about 10, 11 secret letters. And so you can kind of imagine, oh, it seems a lot faster to grind weapons than it is to grind characters. You would think. It's a lot faster to get the materials. But unfortunately, you run into a bit of a bigger hiccup when it comes to actually, well, crafting. And that is the fact that when it comes to weapon blueprints, it's really damn expensive. So, the cost of a weapon is about 280 of these coins over here. You're also going to need either 2 of these projectiles or 2 of these sharpening potions. You need 2 sharpening potions if it's a melee weapon, and 2 projectiles if it's a ranged weapon. You already see here that I have a lot of the resources required, but I still need a lot of these repulsive crystals to actually craft 2 projectiles over here. And you're seeing over here, these are taking the Luno mementos to craft. These Luno mementos over here are the only barrier to me crafting more of the repulsive crystals or the gold sands that are essentially mandatory, right, to make the weapons. And the unfortunate part is, when you look at the commission defense mission, you're noticing 1 run of it only gives you 10. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, 1 run of the defense commission mission only gives you 10. And while the rewards do ramp up over time because this is an infinite stage, you typically go for 3 runs. This is one of those stages where you really, really, really actually want to start using stuff like your commission manuals. Yes, the ones that increase the rewards. So essentially, in these defense missions, you are able to repeat them, increase the level of the enemies, and then increase the rewards as well. This stage, for example, goes from 10 on the first clear to 14 on the second, and then 18 coins on the third. And my suggestion is that you're able to use one of these commission manuals that will increase the rate of rewards that you're getting. This one increases it by 100%. This one's 200%. This one's 800%. And this one's 2,000%. I suggest using either this purple book or this gold book when you get to the third wave that rewards around 18 Luno coins. And if you don't, you're going to be grinding this for fucking ever. Because you need these for your character skills, and you also need these for, guess what? Like I said before, crafting weapons. And crafting one weapon essentially requires, as a raw amount, 300 of these coins. Yes, you need 300 of these coins for every single weapon you want to craft. That is a fuck ton. And I would have to dare say it's one of the worst grinds in the game. And it's really, really, really damn bad. Now, that we covered that, make sure that you're grinding your Luno coins. Make sure you're doing all of that. Now it's time for us to talk about the last piece when it comes to character and weapons. And it's something that I skipped for the characters. And that's actually going to be this thing called track shifts. So you're noticing over here that in my complete Psyche endgame build, I can still get gold wedges and stuff, but this is pretty close to complete in endgame. I can do something called adjust the slot track. And what this does is it allows me to essentially lessen how much certain demon wedges cost to equip on my character. I don't actually need it right now. That's why I'm not going to spend one. But I have about 10 of these 10 of these modules available. It's actually really easy to get these. And they're important to making sure that you can optimize your endgame builds. But do keep in mind, you get basically about 2 of them per character, but you don't need them on every character. For example, supports don't really need them because all you really need on a support character is Prime Uplift, which will increase the damage of every person on your team. And then on your other support character, you probably want something like, well, Prime Serenity, which is going to give energy or sanity to every single character on your team. So I just have like bare bones builds on all my characters, and I was able to full clear the end game. Bare bones on my support characters. So they're not using any track shift modules. I would dare say you just want to use them mainly on your DPSs. And when more detailed guides regarding these characters come out on my channel, we'll be talking about which track shift modules are going to give you the best overall return, bang on your buck for investment. But yeah, you typically want to use it on the ones that are the most expensive because you have the cost of that demon wedge. And you're seeing over here, I have a lot that originally cost 24, like these two, or originally cost 22, like this one over here. And that's probably the best way that you want to go about it, just to progress over there. When it comes to weapons, however, I found no use at all using any of these track shift modules. Just keep that in mind. I literally still have like green and like blue wedges in here. I'm not even like using any of these ones that I have available because I found that, again, weapons really aren't that helpful. But once a character comes out that's able to leverage weapons a lot more, that's probably when we're going to start seeing more uses of that. But I would just say it probably makes a lot more sense just to save them for now. But yeah, that's going to be weapons. That's going to be our coverage over there. Now, let's move on and talk about the pet system. Yes, let's talk a little bit about the Geniemons. So when it comes to your Geniemons, the way that you're going to access them is you just go to the Geniemon menu, and then you'll see that you have your Geniemons split across a bunch of different categories. You have your active Geniemons over here that you capture in the overworld, and then you're also going to have your inactive ones, which you also capture in the overworld, but they're going to have way different purposes. They're both extremely important. Inactive Geniemons have traits that you essentially are able to capture and build up, and then you can transfer the traits from your inactive Geniemon and then move them to your active ones. You can already see over here, I don't have any traits on this guy because, well, I still have a bunch of things that I can merge into here. What I do have, though, is a BP Geniemon, which has 4 active slots and, well, 1 trait already active. I chose the one that gave it 16% attack, and it's pretty easy to just add on another one. You just go over here, and then you see your store of Geniemons that are available, and you can just decide, okay, I want to have a 16% additional shield. I'll confirm it, and then add it on, and then merge it into the guy. You can see why it's probably really important to have a big inventory of Geniemons. You want to have as many inactive traits as possible to have a selection from, and then actually transfer it to the ones that you're going to be using in combat. And this Geniemon is going to be really, really good for my Anemo characters because it increases Anemo attack and then also makes all the demon wedges for my Anemo characters 1.2% more effective as well. And then also, right, he has a shield built in, he has healing built in, he increases resolve, and that's going to make my characters, if they're at lower HP, it's going to make them deal a lot more damage. And so, yeah, you really want to make sure that you're accumulating a big inventory of Geniemons, and you want to make sure, if you're also somebody that purchased the Battle Pass, right? Oh, awesome, great. That you choose a Geniemon that you're actually going to use. For example, I chose the Anemo one because I'm playing Psyche, and it's really good to have that Anemo one. I didn't choose any of the other ones, though, because I'm not really using those characters in the endgame. As far as I'm concerned, it doesn't really seem to be possible to grind these in the overworld. It kind of seems like the Battle Pass might be the only way to get them. I hope that's not actually the case, and we'll find out later on that there's going to be more possibilities out there. But my recommendation is, if you're trying to clear the endgame as fast as possible, choose the Anemo elf. Because, well, Psyche is the best character for clearing the endgame, and this buffs her the most. So yeah, that's my take over there. So, we talked about the BP. Now let's just talk about Geniemon acquisition in general. One of the important things that you really want for acquiring Geniemon is one Geniemon in particular. And that's going to be good old miraculous bro Boxy. Because Boxy does a couple of things. Boxy has greater pickup range. Boxy also increases the amount of loot that you're going to get. And then Boxy also, with their active skill, detects a Geniemon and a chest in the overworld for 30 seconds. So we might see... All right, Boxy's working. And we can see that bro located... He's literally bro. He located a Geniemon. Oh, and this is great. It's an inactive one. I want to be able to catch as many of these as possible. Right? Hopefully this works. Okay, that's so fucked up. It's unbelievable. You're usually supposed to get those. Yeah, me not getting that is crazy. That's bullshit. All right, another one has appeared above me. And you're seeing right now how important Boxy actually is for your clears. Or really, for your progression. Oh, dearie me. Okay. Sorry, I'm about to be using some pay-to-win mechanics over here to deal with this situation. Give me a second. The unfortunate part is that sometimes Boxy will, like, path you like a demon. And you'll be like, okay, how do I even, like, get to where he's telling me to go? And that's where sometimes you just realize, okay. He's taking me to some random spots. Doesn't really matter too much. I just picked up that chest. Let's go demonstrate this catcher mechanic again. So we got this guy. They're an active Geniemon. Kind of annoying. I actually like catching inactive ones more. But yeah, this is typically how you'll just do it. You'll just walk around the overworld. You'll just use Boxy, and then bro will just, like, find Geniemons for you to capture. And so you might be asking the question now, all right, Saint, I see how amazing Boxy is. How the fuck do I get Boxy, though? And this is where I'm going to, unfortunately, not have the best resources for that. Credits to Game 8 for this bad boy. So, Boxy essentially becomes available here in the sewers. In the Ice Lake sewers. He'll just be available, and he has a 100% capture rate, and you can just grab him from there And he's also going to be available somewhere in Lanza Fortress. I found him using Boxy. So my advice would be, get Boxy from here, from this chest. You get him for free in the Ice Lake sewers really early on in the game. And then, oh, sorry for showing the worst game. Then, when you unlock Lanza Fortress in Chapter 2, I'm pretty sure Boxy's like somewhere around here. And then you'll just use Boxy to find Boxy. It worked for me, and that's my suggestion. You don't really need the second copy of Boxy. Oh no. Get these little dogs away from me. Get these dogs away from me. Anyways, you don't really need Boxy, but you can get a second copy of Boxy to actually ascend him and make his passive stronger. You can see that's why it's level 2. It's because I used one of my Boxy to eat the other Boxy. So, yeah. That's just something to keep in mind. And those allow you to add extra traits to your box. And that's really important to do. There are a lot of really, really strong inactive Geniemon traits that you actually want to build up as well. We'll go ahead and see if we can get, like, lucky getting one over here. Okay. It's a Magnetics Drone. There we go, buddy. You're also noticing every time you unlock a new type of Geniemon, you also get trial rank EXP as well. So that's another source of actually leveling it up. And as you saw from chests too, you can also unlock chests that'll give you like 50 trial rank or so EXP in the overworld. Really minor way of boosting some of your stuff, but it's just another method of going about it. And as you can see the reasons for why building up this store of active Geniemons is really helpful. You can actually get some traits that will, like, there's one that, like, hacks for you when you're in missions. There's one that also, like, fishes for you when you're doing fishing as well. So that's just some of the ways that you can, like, buff your stuff. And for example, right, I might actually want to put a frugal one on my Boxy because he already increases drop rate. This will, like, increase his drop rate even more on top of it. So there's a lot of different combinations you can do. You can always replace them. Geniemons are not really something that you should focus on grinding too much at the start. That's my opinion. But they are something that pay off a lot as you get further and further into the game. So, yeah, that's just something to keep in mind. That's going to be Geniemons. That's going to be our coverage over there. Now let's move on and start talking about some other stuff. That's going to be ascending them. One thing to keep in mind is that you will need, first you have the EXP process of actually leveling up your boxes or leveling up your Geniemons. But to ascend them, you're either going to need this special milk that you get from the immersive theater, or you're going to need another copy of the Geniemon that you're trying to make, or that you're trying to actually ascend. And you'll notice for the BP ones, there's not really ways to level them up other than using the Yum Yum milk, because like I said before, you can't really get copies of these elsewhere. So, yeah, definitely keep that in mind when you're in the immersive theater in the endgame. You kind of want to make sure that you're using the Yum Yum milk to, level up these guys. Because leveling them up, they got some pretty damn good buffs. That's just something to keep in mind. But yeah, that's going to be, I think, Geniemons as a whole. Now it's time for us to talk about commission books, resources, grinding, all of that. So, one of the biggest restraints that you're going to have in your character building and you're going to have in your trial rank acquisition is going to be your coins. And my honest truth is that excavation kind of sucks only if you're playing solo. If you're playing in a matched setting, excavation is honestly fine. This is where the co-op of the game really shines. Never do excavation, which is where you get the majority of your coins. Never do it solo. Always do it with a teammate. It will be faster. I guarantee it. When it comes to pretty much every other stage that you have, I would dare say it's not really worth using your commission books. The main places I would say it's worth doing commission books will be defense alongside excavation. Those are the two main ones. Anywhere else, I wouldn't really recommend it. I use them a lot just to be able to progress faster. But honestly, the drop rates in all of these other modes, except maybe mediation, is pretty damn decent. Mediation kind of sucks because it'll just drop any of these randomly. And so you might want to have some books over here just to be able to, like, regulate the drop rates, because these are all the possible weapon upgrade mats in the game. And there's only one mission that drops all of them. It's kind of a disaster because you'll get way too much of one thing and then not enough of another thing. Another place that you want to use your commission books is also going to be here. So, like I said before, when it comes to Demon Wedges, you want a lot of copies of them to get the gold versions of them. And these drop randomly. Anything that isn't the commission level 65 one, where you can actually target the element that you're looking for example, if I want these Hydro Demon Wedges, all I need to do is the stage that drops the Hydro stuff. For all of these other stages, it's entirely random. Getting any of these, it's entirely random. Getting any of these wedges down here, which upgrade into the gold ones, entirely random. Same for this, and then of course, same for all of these. That's why it can be a struggle to even fill out and gather all of these, because you can't guarantee the drop rates on anything that's down here until you reach level 65 commissions that are available at level 45 or level 50 trial rank. And that's the rough part, ladies and gentlemen. It's actually a lot easier to grind these and tailor these ones compared to all of the others. And so I would dare say, as you're going through and you're in like the Demon Wedge grind for the gold ones in the end game, use your commission books here as well. Use the gold ones. Use the gold ones. Hell, you can even use these 20x ones if you want to, because otherwise you will be repeating these stages for a really fucking goddamn long time. So use your books over here when you feel like you're comfortable on the defense side. Otherwise, you're going to be subject to very many layers of RNG. And while these stages can be kind of fast to clear, it will be soul draining to do them for too long. So yeah, definitely make sure that you're, doing yourself some favors, unless you have an extraordinary amount of time to spend on the game. Also, make sure every single week to do your bounty commissions. You'll get 3 runs of these bad boys. And as you can see over here, this is where you're going to get your blueprints for, again, gold versions of all the other demon wedges that are going to be available. So yeah, make sure you're also doing these 3 times a week. And my recommendation is do these solo. Do these solo because your teammates are going to suck ass and not do anything properly. This isn't like excavation, where it doesn't really matter what your teammates are doing. You just need a teammate there with a pulse to drop down the little things for you. You actually need teammates that know what they're doing in this bounty commission. Otherwise, you will want to just run it solo. I have had like 30 minutes of my time wasted by having these absolute jokers just queue in, not do anything, expect to be carried, and then the HP scaling goes up because there's more human players, and then the stage becomes unbeatable because they're not fucking doing anything. That's something to keep in mind when it comes to those. So just be careful about that. All right, that's going to be the main coverage over here on the grinding part of the resources. Now it's time for us to talk about some of the other shops that people should really be aware of. And this is where you're going to find them. Go into shop and then go to the very right and then look at bustling marketplace. Yes, ladies and gentlemen. So as you play throughout the game and then you play the story and you do all of this stuff, you're going to build up impressions over time. That's going to be able to be spent in this store. And this will give you the opportunity to grind a lot of the stuff that you would typically have to, well, actually do missions for. And while there's not a lot in this store, you kind of have like a shit ton of these D10 die anyway. It doesn't really matter. I just bought everything out once I was like, a good bit ahead in the story, and then was just able to get some free stuff that way. Another thing is, well, as you explore the overworld, you're going to get these little advenospheres that will just pop up as you go throughout exploration, and then those can be traded for a bunch of different demon wedges that I've already bought, and they also can be used for like these endgame skill mats, and of course they can also be used for track shape modules too. So that's something important to also keep in mind as you're doing your exploring. Then you're gonna have fishing. And good golly gee, fishing is a little bit broken. Yeah, so fishing takes a while, but as you get enough bait and stuff, you can like buy out all this stuff. It's not really that expensive. After you do a couple of runs, you essentially can fish infinitely. And so fishing is kind of only limited by how long you want to spend on it. And there's a lot of fucking stuff in this store. You got EXP, you got upgrades for your pets. You can actually infinitely buy EXP for your Geniemons too. And then you got a bunch of other stuff. You got coins, you got Demon Wedge experience, you got pristine hourglasses so you can go with the skin gacha. You got a lot of stuff that's in here. Even like special unique Demon Wedges for like, the weapons too. Not really too much of a point in grabbing these though, because the weapons kind of suck. But that's also something to actually keep in mind. Also, bit of a reminder when it comes to overall resources that I didn't mention. Since this is the beginner's guide, you won't have too much of an issue with your Carmine Gleams, but do keep in mind that once you start getting to gold demon wedges, these things are fucking expensive. So essentially, maxing out a gold demon wedge like what you're seeing on my screen, it'll cost around 4,500. Around 4,500 or so Carmine Gleams. A regular one costs about 900. So it basically costs, it's almost like 5 times as expensive to level up a gold demon wedge compared to like one of these purple ones. That's why I recommend don't really go into the golds too early on. I went into it. I had to go end up buying a bunch of Carmine Gleams in all of my other stores, and that's just something that I had to do. But that's just a bit of like a sidetrack over here because I did forget to mention it before. So yeah, going back to the shop, we just looked at the fishing one. There's a shit ton of stuff there. There's also going to be the maze shop, and this one's also pretty important to do as well. The maze is a weekly resetting roguelike and roguelike mode. I won't call it endgame. It's kind of like the simulated universe. It's kind of like the elusive realm. I personally find it to be a little bit too much of an extra grind on top of the existing grind that's in the game, but maybe it's going to become a lot better once we get past like the initial rush of content that the game has on release. It takes a while to do though, but the rewards are very, very, very solid. You can see that I basically bought out the entire store. You can also use this as a source of a way to get your consonant weapon demon wedges too. That's something that is only specific to a couple of characters. You'll notice that it's for Psyche. It's also going to be for, I believe, what is her name? You're also going to have Lizbel on here too. You're going to have Barry as well. These are all characters that are going to have these things called consonance weapons. And these consonance weapons, you can only upgrade them using special consonant demon wedges. And the only way to get the consonant demon wedges is from the Mystic Maze. So that's kind of just how it works. You can see all the different ones available over here. Just keep in mind that once you're at level 55, you unlock the ability to get the gold consonant demon wedges. And to actually do this, well, you'll need 5 copies. So if I wanted to actually craft this gold impetus, that's 81.6% attack, I would need to buy 5 of these ones. But these give 75%. So I'm getting like, you can see the percentage increases over here. I'm going from purple to gold isn't necessarily that high. Oh, you only need 3 copies for these? Okay, you only need 3 copies for these instead of 5. So I guess they're a little bit cheaper, but it's also like, you're going from 75% to fucking 81.6, right? Like fold over is like 27% multi-shot. This one's 25. It's like, are you really going to grind that much for 2% extra? I don't know. Maybe you want to. This is just like one of the most repeatable grinds that you can do because you just can farm these threads of time infinitely from a clear, but you're going to have to play this shit a lot, and I don't really know if it's even worth playing it that much. I think the purples are good enough for those. I wouldn't really recommend going to golds. But yeah, those are going to be the other shops that are in the game. Now, it's time for us to move on to the last shop that's really going to be available, and that's going to be, well, the actual endgame shop. And this is going to warrant its own section. So get ready for the endgame because it's going to get a little bit dicey when we start talking about progression, priorities, all that good stuff. So now it's time for us to talk about the elephant in the room. And that is going to be probably the hardest content that is in the game, the immersive theater. And the immersive theater is also, frankly enough, where you're going to unlock the newest character that always arrives in the game. So you can see over here, one of the rewards for completing the featured repertoire that I have on the screen is copies of Psyche. This is the only way to get her, and she is also the best character to actually clear the mode. However, we got to go through this a little bit sequentially. So there are 3 sections to the endgame, and it resets basically every 28 days. The classic repertoire is essentially the one that doesn't reset. And this one just gives general rewards and is also pretty easy to do for any character, any team in the game. You can use any unit you want. However, do keep in mind the level of these mobs only goes up to 50. And level 50 in this game is about a day's worth of playtime, if not less. Probably about 5-6 hours in, you will be level 50. The formula for clearing the endgame changes dramatically as time goes on. When you get into the featured repertoire, this is where stuff starts getting, in my opinion, a little bit stinky. Because you now have your Act 1. You only have 3 acts, but you have 2 of these in every single act. And each one of these stages is going to have an elemental preference. This side, for example, wants a Pyro character. And this side wants an Anemo character. You really want to use those because if you don't use the right side or the right element for the battle, you will go from a 400% damage increase to a 50% damage decrease. You either do 400% additional damage on this stage by using a Pyro character, or you do 50% less damage if you use any other element type. That essentially means when it comes to the end game of this game, featured repertoire all the way to the immortal repertoire, the tier list is as follows. If you're an Anemo or a Pyro character, you are tier 0. You are broken. And if you are any other unit, you suck ass. You're kind of fucking useless. And that's the reality of the situation over here. Because it's really just this simple, ladies and gentlemen. If you don't adhere to the elemental matching that is on the screen, you kind of just won't clear the content. Yes, if you're like trial rank 55 like I am, and you take, right? You're like, okay, yeah, I'm just gonna brute. Well, Saint's so stupid. I'm just gonna brute force it. Yes, you will clear this part of the repertoire. That's why there are some individuals, right, that are talking about, oh yeah, I have my I3 Lizbel, and she's clearing it just fine, bro. Saint, what are you talking about wasting your investments? You can do this for Acts 1, 2, and 3. Yes. But the second that you get to the Immortal repertoire, which is where the majority of the rewards actually are, you are cooked. But the good news is, it's pretty simple. You'll have a way easy time clearing all of these stages using the elemental stuff that's suggested to you. You have one character over here, Outsider, that can clear it entirely by himself. But you can also pair him with Truffle. Let me just actually craft the teams. You can actually pair him with Truffle, who you get for free, and then also Daphne, who you end up getting for free. He's also free too. So from the free characters that the devs have given you, you have complete ownership of the right side. There is no reason why you shouldn't be able to do the right side, even if you don't grind a single secret letter. On the left side, though, unfortunately, you only have one pyro character that's given to you in the game, Margie. And Margie's actually better as a bit of a support. Yes, she's better as a support. So you actually do want either a DPS like Lynn or Oliver to help you out on this side if you're trying to get progression in the fastest way possible. You can, however, go for the, in my opinion, kind of stupid method of just using like a Lizbel or something and then grinding her up, getting her crazy demon wedges, and then throwing her into the game mode. Or you can just use an Oliver or use a Lynn with a quarter of the investment and you'll clear way easier than using a Lizbel. The option is in your hands. But again, this is for the fastest progression possible. So I'm not going to give you stupid ass advice like telling you to just, grind your Lizbel for 10 hours so that she can muscle through the minus 50% damage done to clear. Because guess what? You're not going to be able to use Lizbel at all when you get to the Immortal repertoire. And this is where you being able to unlock Psyche, potentially, from all the secret letters that you'll get from clearing this initial part, that's where it's going to come in handy. Because, ladies and gentlemen, you essentially get the equivalent of 20 secret letters from clearing this entire Immersive Theater game mode. At least in the featured repertoire. And those 20 secret letters should be enough for you to get at least I0 Psyche. If it's not enough, you're going to need to clear at least the first 2 levels of the Immortal repertoire to unlock an additional 7. And then you can definitely guarantee her. As I was progressing through these stages, I noticed that TR or your trial rank is the real limiter over here. My suggestion is that you level up a copy of Psyche, and then you also proceed to use her with, let me see who I ended up using her with. Use her with Truffle, who you get for free, and then also use her with Daphne, who you get for free. You'll see why when you actually try out the team. Because Psyche essentially has a mode over here, right? Where she goes into the air, and she does a shit ton of damage with her attacks. You're going to notice, though, oh man, that was really short. That's because if Psyche doesn't have enough HP, because she drains HP during that state, she starts draining her sanity. But you'll notice, wait a second, when I summon these guys on my team, those guys have healing. So they're just spamming their heals right now real fast. And then you're going to notice, as I'm going through, I'm not losing sanity, but I'm starting to lose HP. Oh, and this kind of changes everything. So having 2 healers on Psyche's team essentially means you can sustain her DPS mode for almost forever. And that's why I suggest that team comp. That's why she's so good. And guess what, guys? She has 2 teammates that are essentially best-in-slot teammates that are being given out for free to use with her. And when you combine this trio together, you're going to blow up all of the content that's going to be available in this Immersive Theater. But you will be hard locked on a couple of stages. The first stage that you're going to be hard locked on is Act 6, because this has level 92 enemies. You kind of basically cannot do this until you hit trial rank 55. That's what was stopping me from recording this video, and of course, clearing all the way up until Act 12, which is where the rewards basically end. Because Act 6 over here has, and this is wrong by the way, it's not level 70, has level 92 enemies, none of the other acts that follow it have enemies that are the same level. These guys are like level 82, these guys are like level 84, these guys are 86, 88, and like 90, and then it jumps up to, I'll just show you what Act 12's level is. Get ready, guys. I'll just show you what the level is in Act 12. These bad boys over here have about... they're level 104. And just as an example, this is how much damage I deal to level 104 enemies. Not a lot, but it's enough. Right? It's enough. Because I obviously cleared. You also have another situation, right, that comes out of that. The lower level you are relative to the enemy, the way less damage it feels like you deal. And so, naturally, you could also just wait to tackle this endgame. You still have 20 days. You could just wait and naturally accumulate trial rank just from your daily commissions and logins. And that, in my opinion, is the most budget way to play this game. You don't actually have to spend too much time because you're allowing your dailies to do the leveling for you. Because as you can see, I'm getting 120, 240, 360, 480, 600 trial rank EXP every single day just from doing the easiest dailies on the planet. You do these accidentally after you do a single stage. And that 600 a day, it's not going to be the fastest, but it'll get you some places as you are grinding in all these other different ways. And when you do keep in mind that the immersive theater, while it is difficult, and while it is level locked, you need to be trial rank 55 to essentially full complete it. Well, it lasts 20 days until the next cycle. And while the rewards are pretty significant, it's not the end of the world if you miss out on them, because Psyche is then going to move to Nocturnal Echoes. However, you also want to keep in mind, like I mentioned before, Nocturnal Echoes is also kind of time-gated too. A little bit rough. So yeah, I would just say overall, progression in this game has been something that's been a little bit difficult. Progression in this game is something that's required a bit of a grind. And I would just say overall, when it comes to raising your trial rank experience, doing all of that the fastest, this would be my overall priority. This is kind of like my final set of tips. Unlock every single character that you can via the secret letter clues, as well as the Nocturnal Echoes, and then just ascend them as much as you can. Try to get as many weapons as possible, but if you feel like the grind for the Luno coins is killing you, you can kind of like put weapons on the back burner and wait until you're level 55 where coins become way less important and start grinding more weapons then. That's the route that I decided to take. And while you can see over here, I'm leaving a lot of trial rank EXP on the table because I decided to wait until I'm actually crafting all my weapons. You can see I have very few of the ranged ones. I went for that method. And instead, I decided to spend a majority of my time farming these demon wedges. Because as you begin building up the collection, right, you're seeing that's a lot of trial EXP that you get just from collecting these. And so, I spent a lot of time in these Noctoyager manual, in like these commissions over here, to make sure that I'm like filling them out, that I'm like repeatedly doing them, trying to get 100% essentially completion over here. And that was basically the fastest way for me to actually acquire that trial rank EXP and then make the push over to 55 to basically do everything that's in the game. So those would be my top 3 sort of things. Then you obviously have like the little journey that you can do to like collect the Geniemons. Then you have like all the chests that you can also collect in the overworld as well. I would say those are a bit lower priority, and you can save those for later. The last method, which is also probably the most important for getting trial rank EXP, and it's something that I have actually been putting off and I could have gotten trial rank 55 a lot faster, is the story quest. Because these story quests essentially become available constantly throughout the game. You can like bum rush these. And while it only says 300 trial rank EXP over here, these quests come in like multiple parts. Some of them give like 1,000. Some of them give like 800. Some of them give you like 1,500 EXP. And this isn't telling the full story about how much EXP the story quests actually give. But the story is without a doubt probably the fastest way of actually leveling up in terms of time that actually gets spent. Yeah, people are saying the last one gives 2,000 total. And as you can see over here, That would be enough to push me over a level of myself. So I actually went the hard route by spamming the Demon Wedge missions and not doing the story. But I highly recommend you actually do the story. But I naturally didn't want to like demonstrate that live for spoilers purposes and stuff like that. Plus, you also don't really want to like rush the story because the story's like actually good. Yes, the story in this game is actually really good. So I don't recommend like rushing it for the sake of trial EXP because it's actually a damn good story and you kind of want to listen to it. So yeah, I think it's a bit of a trade-off over there from the devs, but they have made the story definitely worth it from a progression side, and it's also worth it from an engagement side. So make sure that you don't skip out on that one. All right, but yeah, that's going to be our, I think, total Duet Night Abyss beginner's guide. This is going to be sectioned off, chapterized as well, and naturally, right, I know that this is something that's still relatively early on in the game's release. There are definitely some things that I missed, some specifics, some intricate mechanics, but I thought that this was an overall, generally pretty decent first pass, given 50 plus hours in the game and full completion in the end game. And hopefully the advice that you guys have gotten, the little tips here and there that I've been able to provide will help you make the fastest progression overall that you can in this game as well. Because this is the thing. You can infinitely grind in this game, but grinding comes at the cost of time. And not everybody has the privilege of being like me, where my job is to play video games and make videos about them and stream video games live. I'm able to comfortably do that. But there are a lot of people that either have work, that have children, that have other responsibilities, so on and so forth, that might want to play this game, that might want to get a lot out of it, but don't have 15 plus hours to play a day. So in the comments section, in the tips, let's not be out here saying dumb shit like, oh, why is he telling people not to build other characters? You could just grind everybody. Not everybody has tens of hours to play, to spend on the game every day. And unfortunately, a lot of people that are either unemployed, in school, jobless, childless, whatever it is, seem to have this fetish or obsession for assuming that everyone that plays this game is just like them. If so, nothing in this guide is really going to be useful to you because you have an infinite amount of time to spend on the game. So clearly, this is meant for those individuals that maybe aren't doing that. So yeah, that's my final disclaimer. That's the final thing. Let me know what you all thought about this guide, ladies and gentlemen, and if it helped you out. And also, definitely feel free to leave in the comments below where I've missed some critical details, and then maybe we'll do a bit of a follow-up. And peace out.